You are looking at an animal that can live forever, but it's not a certain someone from Britain. It is actually this jellyfish. This is Turritopsis dohrnii, also known as the immortal jellyfish or the peanut worm. And it's one of the most bizarre creatures on the planet. It looks like a tiny see-through bell about the size of a sesame seed with four horseshoe-shaped cones and a mouth in the middle for eating. In 2008, a team of marine biologists from the University of Aberdeen set out to learn more about it. They wanted to know if their lab specimens would eventually die, which is what you want your lab specimens to do. But the jellyfish refused to die. When they were starved, they shrunk. When they were fed, they grew back bigger than before. They seemed immortal. Now, we still don't fully understand why. It lives in the warmer waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, usually at depths between 650 and 2,000 feet. Even though it's small, it's been spotted carrying prey twice its size. It feeds by stinging other organisms and then consuming their insides. As far as scientists can tell, there's no predators that eat adult Turritopsis. You'd think because of its potentially infinite lifespan, it would have lots of predators, but it seems like nothing does. Even after discovering all of these things, scientists still had no idea how old the jellyfish was or if it was even capable of getting old. So in order to figure that out, they tried to figure out where it came from. The original specimen was collected from the Portoferraio Bay off the Tuscan island of Dohrnii in 1988. Scientists were able to trace its origins back to that day, but before that they knew nothing. It was like trying to look back through time to find the creature's beginning. That was until late 2020 when scientists used DNA analysis to get to the bottom of it. They collected tissue samples from 7 different jellyfish across 3 continents. All 7 turned out to be clones. They were all female, and they had all reproduced asexually. They discovered that the immortal jellyfish was born in the mid-1980s somewhere in the western Pacific Ocean. Now, because it reproduces asexually, the only way to tell if any 2 of them are related is by their DNA. So by comparing their DNA, scientists were able to construct a family tree. They found that all 7 jellyfish collected from the wild were descended from one common ancestor. They all shared 99.9% of their DNA with each other. This means that they're all sisters. And more than likely they all originated from a single event where the mother jellyfish reproduced asexually. Since then, they've all just cloned themselves over and over again in perfect unison. So since all of these jellyfish are related to each other, they're all roughly the same age. And according to estimates, they were born sometime in the early to mid-1980s. So if you were alive then, chances are you were around when they were born. Well, not unless you were frozen and cryogenically preserved or something. Then you'd be younger. But anyways, based on the genetic evidence, scientists say that this species has only been around for about 40 years. So if you were born in the 1980s, then you and the immortal jellyfish are around the same age. How old are you? Let me know in the comments section down below. Now that we know when the species was born, it raises another. How long does it take for one of these jellyfish to grow up? It's unclear exactly how long it takes because scientists didn't observe the entire life cycle. But they did note that some of the lab-grown jellyfish reached maturity in 10 months. Others took longer. And this is important because part of the reason they were able to discover that these creatures clone themselves is because they saw it happen. They saw young immature jellyfish transform into adults right before their eyes. They noticed that one particularly strange thing happened during this transformation. The mature jellyfish became smaller. Their polyps shrank. By 30 days, the average diameter went from 1 mm to 0.7 mm. What was happening here? Why were they shrinking? What were they becoming? It's actually really weird because there are 2 main ways that animals reproduce. The first is sexually. Male and female animals mate and produce offspring. The second way is asexually. A single animal makes more of itself without mating. The advantage of sexual reproduction is genetic diversity. If there's a change in the environment, a diverse population is more likely to survive because they'll have a wider range of traits. Asexual reproduction is much less common among animals, and it's usually done through budding. A parent splits into two or more identical offspring. Turritopsis dohrnii do this, but they do it differently. They turn their polyps into medusa. The medusa bud off from the polyp, which makes the polyp smaller, and then the medusa grow up and become new polyps. It's kind of like if you lost a finger and then grew a new finger in its place. Except instead of a finger, it's a baby. Now, because all of these jellyfish are clones, the benefit of sexual reproduction doesn't really apply. And normally, if an animal clones itself over and over again, it starts to fall apart because it doesn't have the ability to repair its own DNA. Eventually, its genome accumulates so many mutations that the individual dies. But the immortal jellyfish seems immune to this process. Somehow it repairs its own DNA perfectly. So, here's a question for you. You know how earlier I said that the only way to tell if two of these jellyfish are related is by their DNA? Well, what if we could figure out a way to read their DNA without killing them? Could we use that to determine if this is actually a single giant organism? Like if we started reading the DNA of all of the jellyfish and we found out that they all had the exact same genetic code, could we say that they're all one giant immortal being? What do you think? Let me know in the comments section down below. As far as we know, this is the only species on Earth that can clone itself indefinitely. And while it's certainly weird, scientists think that it might have an upside. It might hold the key to understanding human aging. After all, if humans could clone themselves or repair their own DNA like the immortal jellyfish, we too could live forever. And while science fiction stories about immortality have always seemed like a pipe dream, researchers now believe it might be possible. There are already signs that people are able to reverse their biological clocks. Some studies show that it is possible to add years to a person's life by changing their lifestyle. The diet and exercise of a person can affect how fast they age. And there are drugs that can slow down or reverse the aging process. They work by targeting certain genes and proteins that control cell growth and metabolism. In some cases, they've reversed the aging process by 5 years or more. The trouble is that it's expensive. Clinical trials are going on right now to test the safety and effectiveness of these drugs. But if they work, it might mean that we can add years to our lifespan. We might live longer than we ever imagined. And that's not the only good news. One day we might even be able to control how fast we age. If we could slow down the aging process, we could live longer, healthier lives. Maybe we could even live forever. But you know what? I'm starting to realize that we might not be alone in the universe. Imagine you're standing on a beach watching the sunset when suddenly the sky fills with lights. At first you think it's a meteor shower, but then you realize that they're landing. One by one, flying things touch down all around you and beings emerge from them. What do? Do you welcome them as friends or try to destroy them? When humanity began exploring space, we did so with the hope of finding life out there. But what if we find something else? What if we find intelligent machines? Artificial intelligence is growing exponentially. Computers are becoming smarter every day. And who's to say that there aren't computers out there that are already smarter than us? What if they're observing us right now? What if they've been observing us? Maybe the sky isn't filled with stars, but with satellites. Maybe the lights weren't meteors, but spaceships. Maybe we're not alone. This could happen to you. It could happen to anyone. But you know what? It hasn't yet. So thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.